Okay. Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Sabah al-khair, sabah al-nur. See if I can get in the frame here correctly. Um, so I'm sitting here talking about Muslims in the public space. What do I mean by this? One, it's connected to the tragedy involving Wissam Sharif and Blake Barakat and the child. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. And what I've noticed is, understandably, I know a lot of people have been quite enraged, outraged, etc., over what's happened. That's 100% understandable. Then there are those that would use this opportunity to actually derail the conversations that need to happen. Some of you saw the video that I did yesterday, talking about, what are some things that we can do structurally to try to make some changes in our community so that going forward we could make like a real sea change of how our community is formulated from the ground up. But there is a certain type of individual, and yes, it is on social media, but it is a representation. To what scope, I don't know, but this is the thing. So there's an individual that started, and not just one, there's actually several people I saw that they took the actions of what Wissam Sharif did, again, as somebody labeled as an imam and somebody labeled as a Quran teacher. And they said, oh man, هذا هو الإسلام الأمريكي. Oh, look at this American Islam. This is highly problematic, and as I commented in the individual's post, asinine, right? This is a ridiculous, dumbass statement that, one, shows no empathy or sympathy to the people involved that have been abused, traumatized at this. It makes light of the seriousness of what has transpired, because this is not Islam Amriki. And this is, it's amazing. When you read like certain passages in Surah Al-Qalam, and we read the qissa of Ashab al-Jannah, right? We read the story about those people of the garden. وَلَا يَسْتَثْنُونَ, We read the story of the people of the garden in the 68th chapter of the Quran. And one of the things that they do is, not only did they do something heinous, because they were believers that didn't want to allocate food to be given to the poor. أَنْ لَا يَدْخُلُنَّهَا الْيَوْمَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِسْكِينٌ. And so this is why, one, the Quran is so incredibly important as a book to read, and why we have to have faith in Allah, faith in His book, in His revelation, in His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? In the kutub, in the Rasul, in the Anbiya, on the day, in the Yawm al-Akhiri, on the day of judgment, and so on and so on. Why? Because there is a mystique about believers being infallible, or they would only do things to a certain level. So, as Ibn Ashur, the great Mufassir, rahimahullah, may Allah have mercy on him, as he wrote, he said, كل الروايات عن هذه الآيات تتفق أن ما كانوا كفارا. As Ibn Ashur said in his commentary on the Quran, he said that all of the narrations regarding this story agree that the Ashab al-Jannah were not kuffar, right? They were not disbelievers, they were believers. And they royally screwed up. And at the towards the end of the story, they say, وَعَسَىٰ رَبُّنَا أَن يُبَدِّلَ خَيْرًا مِنْهُمْ. Perhaps our Lord will make something good out of this tragedy. And I think that's something we have to remember in the case of this issue, is that inshallah, Allah Ta'ala will make something good out of this tragedy. Part of that is people need to stop making asinine statements that are unsympathetic, that derail the conversation that needs to be had, to providing support for the victims, that also provide support for a sea change in our community, to make lasting changes. But also, in one of the ways that will frustrate our ability to take this horrific act of evil, have a learning moment of it, hopefully, inshallah, make a change for the better, is if we just say, هذا هو Islam Amriki. Oh, this is just American Islam. As if there are things that Muslims have not done in the Muslim world that are also not heinous. This is ridiculous, emasculated, asinine, milk toast. I mean, every kind of, I'm trying not to curse, right? This kind of thinking is why we are in the shape that we are. Oh, we just, the solution to this would be khilafah. The solution to this would be halal meat. The solution for this issue would be the abolishing of riba. Yeah, those are all things that we would like to have, but those things don't create a perfect world in which evil still will not take place. And so the issue of the evil that Wissam committed and that Barakat committed, that Blake committed, is nothing to do with America as something, as a inherent quality. No, I commented yesterday, I do believe that American society does have a corrosive, toxic effect on everybody in America, outside America, because it's now part of the global culture. And as I mentioned yesterday, I do believe that people being reared on a mother's milk of fawahish and fisq, of obscenities and the like, they do contribute to that. But to reduce this issue to, this is American Islam, one, you have now thrown the entirety of the American Muslim experience, and therefore all Muslims in America, you have thrown everybody equally under the bus, that essentially to be an American Muslim is tantamount to sexually abusing children and cooperatively doing that with their parents. This is an absolute asinine statement. And I've seen far too many of these, what can you say, these man-child, because it's mainly dudes. It's not, I don't see very many women making these kinds of comments, because I think one, not that men haven't, I've seen a lot of men, especially fathers, are just, soul crushed by the idea of a young child, a young girl, a young daughter, having this done. But in particular, and for, obvious reasons, this has resonated with women. And so these kinds of ridiculous, dumbass, asinine statements are mainly coming from, the kind of like keyboard warrior guys that probably have, they probably follow Andrew Tate and the rest of this kind of, nonsense, and that they're an alpha male. And so this problem cannot be swept aside by just Islam Amriki. And so what's also very frustrating in these kinds of comments is that it gives the appearance that all we have to do to banish this bugbear, to abjure this evil, is just to cast the incantation of Islam Amriki, and that's it, game, set, match. This is what is really frustrating that I find in my job of dealing with the Muslim, this generation of Muslims, is that there's a strong anti-intellectualism that runs, that's also, I think, spills over just into the moment we're living. So Muslim, non-Muslim, but I want to deal with the Muslims. I think that there's a very strong anti-intellectual sentiment that runs amongst us. And then we just simply use these sloganisms and these jingoisms and these mantras like, Islam Amriki, feminism, liberalism. We use these very simple-minded, pre-manufactured, plastic words that are, again, they have connotation but no denotation, right? They have a certain kind of aesthetic on the surface, but they're devoid of anything substantive. We are not going to provide support for the victims of this or any other victims, because, right, if this has happened here, we already know it's happened before, and there may be instances of it already have happened that we're not, aware of. And we're not going to fix this problem by just simply, casting like being like Gandalf, right? Casting, you shall not pass, American Islam. This is ridiculous. And so I made a very strong rebuttal to that person. I said, you and the likes of you are part of the problem of why it is so hard to make changes in the community, because one, we're either dealing with people that are either they're burnt out, people that have been completely secularized, or, in my opinion, a kind of fashioning of all of them, which is the hyper-cynicist, right? This kind of demeanor, this kind of attitude, this kind of behavior is emblematic of a person that does not have much depth of character. Now, what's ironic, this person here, their handle is Knowledge North, and history in heresiology, ethnography, and in all things Muslimic. I mean, their whole issue was like, they were fixating on a video in which Wissam Sharif was trying to illustrate to people how to recite the Quran and some of the makharij, how to pronounce some of the things. And so, undeniably, it's very theatrical and over the top. And so he used a phrase, ooey gooey, in it, which I agree is kind of really bizarre. And the person's comment was, what is this? Quran for lady boys. Again, this is what I'm talking, this is like the kind of tatification of the young Muslim mind. You can critique what he said, but why use the term lady boys? Right? One, this shows that your primary concern is not about giving the appropriate ihtiram, the appropriate respect to the Quran, to the Book of Allah, and to recite it correctly, right? And so it's really more about you having some chest thumping moment. Anyone teaching Quran remotely, anyone teaching anything remotely Islam saying, bring ooey gooey to the middle of your mouth, should be shot on those grounds alone. And then he's talking about that this is tantamount to American Islam. And I'm like, this is absolutely ridiculous. And so I said, your remarks were in reference to, so anyway, I responded to the person and I went quite in depth and I said, your comments are indeed asinine, right? I said, if you think that American Islam is somehow represented by Wissam Sharif, either in his style of teaching Quran or ultimately in the evil that was hidden in his heart of which he perpetrated, then you're grossly mistaken. Your comments were as clumsy as they were inaccurate. And so I said, essentially what you're saying is that his choice of words, ooey gooey, which I'm not going to argue, that is weird, but I said, it's as if you're saying that his choice of words were somehow a direct manifestation of American Islam. It's an inevitability by you being an American Muslim that you would come to say not only weird stuff about the Quran, but then ultimately, right, you would eventually be a slippery slope onto committing, right, child pornography and sexual abuse. I said that by proxy of him being an American and that America itself informed him to pick and choose those words as if they were an inevitability only proves the fact that your statement was an asinine statement, right? And so this is what I mean. Like, I know we're all upset, and we should be. Everybody should be outraged by this. Everybody should be hurt by this. But we have to be careful of taking what is something beyond tragedy and turning it into a moment of like and subscribe, a moment of grandstanding, or a moment of some kind of almost public masturbation. I'm sorry to use such crude words, but this is what it's like. That's what it's like when you would actually steal the moment away from this child that was abused by her mother and somebody that she trusted, and now you're going to talk about American Islam, as if that does anything to deal with the problem. So until we have the maturity and put on the real big boy and big girl pants to deal with this problem as a real serious problem, maybe it isn't because of the compassionate imams or this, whatever the explanations are, that things don't change, right? It's because our hearts don't change. So yeah, I have taken this particular incident really to heart. I mean, I have a 13-year-old daughter. I'm also an imam. And so I relate to this intimately on a child being abused by a parent and by somebody in a position as a Quran teacher to abuse. Yeah, I have taken this extremely personal. And so if anybody's going to come and clown and grandstand, you're going to get, if I can't get to you in person, you're going to get slapped in the mouth proverbially. And maybe if I see you in person, you just might get slapped in the mouth. But you should be ashamed of yourself to use such a moment to steal the limelight and try to derail a conversation that we need to have about healing and support and change, just for a moment to you to have some moment to thump your chest. This is ridiculous. And I highly encourage all of you with adab to not give these people any space or any quarter if they choose to try to usurp this moment. Unfollow them, block them, reproach them, all of those things. I think so. I think we need to not give any space at this moment to allow anybody to derail this important conversation and situation, inshallah. So anyway, I've said my piece. I got to try to pack up and go home. But may Allah Ta'ala protect our children. May Allah Ta'ala have mercy upon this child and any other children or any other people that have been affected by this heinous act of evil. May He console them, heal them, and keep them thabitin, inshallah, ala dinihi. May He keep them firm upon their deen. Wa salli wa sallam wa barak ala Sayyidina Muhammad. And may Allah Ta'ala, of course, bless our master and our guide Muhammad wa ala alihi at-tayyibin wa ala ashabihi al-mutatahhirin wa man walahum bifadlin wa ihsanin ila yawm ad-din. Jazakum Allahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum.